Okay. It was left there 10, 15 years ago. Jeff. It's still running. Batteries don't last but about 5 years on that model. Okay. It was left there 5 years ago. You satisfied? Okay, go ahead and take a seat. You see, it doesn't matter what these laboratories come up with for dates. We know there are certain processes or events out there or historical things that make it absolutely impossible for this watch to have been left there 1,150 years ago, right? And that's what you're getting ready to see some evidences for. I got a question for you. In this little hypothetical scenario, did we prove that this watch was left there 5 years ago? No. We proved that was the maximum age it could have been left there, right? If the battery is dead, did we prove it was left there 15 years ago? No. That's the maximum age. If all we knew was a man-made type object and found in the gold mine, then we know it's a maximum of 150 years. Any one of those three evidences disprove 1,150 years. Let's look at some of the evidences. Now, the Bible tells us to answer a fool according to their own folly. In other words, use their own evidence against them. They have some process out there called uniformitarianism. Basically, it means this. You and I, we don't believe in uniformitarianism. We believe in a creation by God, sudden event, 1 week. We believe in a judgment by God, worldwide flood, which would have buried practically all the world. Okay, so we believe in catastrophic events. They go by uniformitarian. Oh, no. All the rates we see going on today have been going on for millions and billions of years. By the way, 2 Peter chapter 3, Peter said that is exactly what they would say. But that's another issue. So let's go to uniformitarian assumptions right here, and let's go out into the heavens. So the heavens declare the glory of God. Now, astronomy is one of those fields that's difficult in science. In science, we're supposed to be able to take things into a laboratory, test it, and come up with some experiment to prove it either true or false. Has anybody ever created a star in a laboratory? No, folks. So it's difficult in the area of astronomy. We look out there, we just get light from something, and we got to make up these stories of how they got there. Okay? Make up stories. Okay. How about this right here? That's a spiral galaxy. A spiral galaxy right here means that the stars in the middle are going around faster than the stars on the outside. That's all it means. They claim that the spiral galaxy is billions of years of age for this whole galaxy. In fact, there's one of the spiral arms. See that spiral arm? I want you to pretend like an evolutionist, let's say the theory was correct. Let's say this spiral galaxy originally started with arms sticking straight out the side. As things start rotating, it would wind itself up and wind it up itself just like this. How long would it take for it to wind up in this shape? Only a few 100 million years. I thought they said it was billions of years of age. Even their own theories, even their own assumptions don't work, folks. Never have. What about Saturn and its rings? We sent some probes out there from NASA. Guess what we found? The rings are falling apart. They can't last for more than a few thousand years. What? You mean they're not billions of years of age? Our solar system is supposed to be 4.6 to 4.8 billion years of age. They're not, folks. This is a NASA scientist who worked on the program, on this particular probe, okay? And he turned around and says, after all this time, we're still not sure about the origin of Saturn's rings. Well, they were before they got this data. They were sure it was 4.6 billion years of age. Even they admitted Saturn's rings can't be so old. And to give you reasons why. We won't go through the details, but if you want more information, I'll give it to you. And there's more information to show there's something wrong with Saturn for millions and billions of years of the age. High winds, magnetic field, detail on the rings, and this other moon on Saturn. If you were standing on this moon looking out to Saturn, what is it sitting there doing with an eruption going off? It should have already cooled down really cold by now. It can't possibly be there. 1 year ago, this is only just 2006. So in 2005, they said 1 year ago, one of the most startling discoveries in the history of the solar system. Startling to who? Not creationists. It's startling these poor evolutionists that got another piece of data they got to stick under cover, lie about, or make up another Hollywood story for. No, folks. Jupiter's still putting off too much heat. Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, Venus, they're still too hot. If they really were 4.6 billion years of age, they should have cooled off. I mean, I don't care if you start with the surface of Saturn being 20,000 degrees. It would have cooled off a lot more than it is right now. Just like a cup of coffee. Imagine you walk into a room and there's a cup of coffee sitting on the table. And you do the following. Don't do this, okay? You stick your finger in someone else's coffee. And you go, that's still a little warm. Two people walk into the room. They both say, hey, I know when that coffee was left there. It was originally just lukewarm, because I only like warm coffee, and I left it there about 3 minutes ago. You say, well, that's possible. It could have cooled down just a little bit in 3 minutes. No big deal. The other person says, oh, no. It was steaming hot. It was 211 degrees. It was incredibly hot, and it was left there 10 years ago. You just shake your head and go, no, it would have completely cooled off by now. We couldn't have any warmth left. It'd be room temperature by now. It'd be obvious who's lying, wouldn't it? And that's what we're seeing here, folks. They should have cooled off by now a lot more. You know the theories they have to come up with to try to explain this? And then those theories turn out to be some problems too. What about Jupiter's moon, Ganymede? Or what about Io? Ooh, Io's got volcanic eruptions. Take a look at that one right there. See that volcanic eruption back there? That thing should have been stone cold by now. And it's still going off for the whole 20-some years we've been out there probing this thing. Look at these. Kind of tough for that to have been formed billions of years ago, isn't it? Switch to another evidence. What about our moon? Our moon is actually moving away from the Earth. You look up there one night, and it's further away than the previous night. Now, it's only about that much, so you won't notice it, okay? In fact, over the whole year, it only moves about 2 to 4 centimeters. It's no big deal, okay? If the Earth is 6,000 years old, it's no big deal. What if the Earth and the moon are supposed to form 4.6 billion years ago? That puts a maximum age on the Earth. And it's just simple laws of physics turn us this maximum age is around 900 million years of age for maximum. Even if we're as generous as we could possibly be to the evolutionists, stretch everything to the hilt in their favor, we can't get more than 1.4 billion years. Kind of tough on their theory, isn't it? And if you want to go to the physics, we can cover about the square law. Instead of 1 over r squared, it's 1 over r cubed for the differential gravitational attraction, but that's another issue. More evidence, what about comets? Short period comets means they go around the sun less than every 200 years. Every 200 years they're going by the sun. Well, after so many trips, they've lost all their outer shell. It's gone. They're just meteorites after that. So it means short period comets can't last more than about 10,000 years, or they completely have fallen apart. Is there any more evidence? Fossil meteorites in the layers that supposedly were exposed for 10 million years. Where's your fossil meteorites? What about supernova remnants? How many of y'all ever heard of supernova? Raise your hands. Okay, you've heard of supernovas, right? Well, supernova, during that explosion, you and I can't see it after a certain time. But if you take infrared telescopes up there, you can still see the light being given off by these supernova remnants. Because we know from the laws of physics, you should be able to see them up to about 1 million years in age. In fact, the astronomers and astrophysicists, they would predict that we should have about 5,000 supernova remnants that we should be able to detect. Guess how many we found? 0. The only ones we find are the young ones. They expect 5,000 phase 3 old ones, and they find 0. Kind of tough on their theory, isn't it? What about more from space? Space dust, pointing Robertson effect, ghost craters on the moon, and there's even more, okay? They just have to come up with a Hollywood story to try to tell you their theory. When you see these evidences, you realize it's just a story. It's not science. Now let's go from the heavens. Let's go to the earth. The Bible says, or speak to the earth, and it shall teach you. Now, the earth evidences are a whole lot better evidences to use because they're testable. They're scientific, okay? They're falsifiable. You can turn around and someone else can recreate your ideas, right? Now, the earth has a magnetic field. You all know what a magnet is, right? Now, I didn't say the magnetic field direction or strength in one direction is shrinking 6% in 150 years. I'm saying the overall magnetic field strength of the whole earth has gone down, according to the measurements of science, about 6% in the last 150 years. That means 150 years ago, it was 6% stronger. 150 years before that, it's probably 6% stronger than that. 150 years before that, 6% stronger than that. If you go back more than 10 to 50,000 years, the Earth's magnetic field would have been so strong, life couldn't have existed on this planet. And it also does something with carbon-14 dating, but that's another subject for another time. Well, if the Earth is millions of billions of years of age, then how come the largest desert in the world, and it's growing every single year, so if it's growing, then we go back in the past and say, how long in the past was it really, really, really small? The largest desert in the world turns out to only be about 4,000 years old. Why isn't there a bigger desert somewhere on this planet, folks? Or what about the biggest living organism? A tree. Now, tree ring dating is definitely not very accurate, But how come the oldest living organism is only about 4,000 years old, 4,300, okay? Coral reefs, they used to say, we know the Bible's wrong because coral reefs prove that they're millions of years of age. Largest coral reefs, 20 million years old. They don't say that anymore. Why? Because, once again, science finds out they were wrong in the past. They modify their books. And so then they turn around and say, oh, no, now we know the oldest one's only 600,000 years old. And now they're even admitting we don't even have 600,000-year-old ones. Most of the coral reefs are just deposits. You know, like during a flood, you lay down some deposits. And then the corals grew on top of that and easily fits within a 4,000-year time frame, or 4,400 years. In fact, during World War II, the Great Barrier Reef down in Australia was damaged. And so your government spent some tax dollars, your money, went down there and turned around and measured how fast do the coral reefs grow back. And that huge barrier reef could have grown from nothing all the way to its present size today in just 4,200 years, according to what they measured after World War II. Raise your hand if you've ever been inside one of these caves. Any cave anywhere. Anybody seen stalactites or stalagmites? A few of you have, okay. Well, how do they say they used to form? Well, my generation, they said the following. They turn around and says, how did this all start? 250 million years ago. Tiny drops of water. Tiny drops of water over millions of years? In fact, if you find a stalactite or stalagmite that has got as much volume as 1 cubic inch, that represents thousands of years of this water dripping on it. That's what they taught. I got a question for you. It take thousands of years for every one of those inches to form? That's a Lincoln Memorial built in 1922, folks. It take thousands of years. Look at this. This stalactite ran across a stalagmite, merged. That take thousands of years to form? Oh, no, folks. That thing is only 40 years old. You mean it doesn't take millions of years for stalactites and stalagmites? No. Here's a mine. It wasn't even dug until 55 years before this photo. They form quickly. All you got to have is the right conditions. It's no big deal. So we know that these caves could have formed very quickly. And here's the guy that actually works in the caves, this cave specialist. He turned around and took a camera, would have it take a picture about every 10 minutes, photo monitor it, and guess what? In just a matter of days, he saw some of the stalactites or stalagmites grow inches. Wow. You see, their story of how caves formed millions of years ago, just a Hollywood story. It has nothing to do with science. I like this particular illustration. One time, somebody saw some mineral water, probably warm mineral water, bubbling up out of the earth. They said, wow. So they took a pipe, they stuck it right down over that hole. So now the water had to come up the pipe and go outside the hole, right? Stuck some rocks around the thing to kind of help the pipe stand up, okay? And that was 1903. What do you think would happen? Well, it's the same thing that's why your mothers and fathers say, you know, when you take a bath, would you please clean out the bathtub? If you don't clean out the bathtub, eventually after a few years you start getting mineral deposits and starts to look kind of gunky and things of that nature. Well, this is mineral water. You can imagine the minerals starting to actually evaporate out and form around this pipe and around the rocks. So you start forming what's called a flow stone. Let's go back to that evidence. There's the actual sign next to the flow stone. There he is standing next to the flow stone. You think it got a little big since 1903? Does it take millions of years for that to form? Well, let's zoom back out. Let's look at the top. Whew. Now let's back off. This is people standing up over here, folks. That's just since 1903. It doesn't take millions of years to form these gigantic flow stones? No, folks. There's another place over here in England. You can turn around and take all kinds of things, hang them off these ropes that they got, hang them right there, and the water that comes off is so heavy mineralized that it'll fossilize those things, such as teddy bear, and the outside will start becoming a hard fossil just on the outside in 3 months. No problem. No problems, folks. It just takes the right conditions. It doesn't take millions of years for fossils to form. In fact, it's impossible for millions of years to even be in the equation for fossils. I'll show you that in just a second. Now, the evolutionists, when they find fossils buried in these sedimentary layers, what do they say? Oh, 1 inch of those rock layers, 1 inch took thousands of years for sedimentary deposits in the bottom of some lake or the ocean. That's what they claim. And you say, well, how come this big old fish is sitting there fossilized in it? I mean, wouldn't fish rot? I mean, if a fish died, they usually float. But anyways, the ones that sink to the bottom, it sinks to the bottom, lays there for millions of years before it gets turned into a fossil, that's impossible. It would fall apart.